Hi, this is Laylee with In Vivo Leadership Strategies, and this is Integrity Over Scale podcast. Welcome to Integrity Over Scale podcast. I am your host, Laylee. I have Trisha here with me. Trisha, thank you so much for joining us this week. I'm so excited for you and the episode. How you doing
Yes,
today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Laylee.
Oh my gosh, of course. You are a phenomenal woman, and I want to have the audience get to know you a little bit more. So tell us about you and tell us about your business.
Yeah, okay. So I'm born and raised in Prescott Valley. So my husband and I started Scoop and Skedaddle. I had just got laid off with COVID. And I wanted to do something that was kind of going to make a difference in the community. And so we started this job because we had a few neighbors that needed help with pet waste removal, and we were helping them. And then word kind of spread, and we were just doing it to be nice. And then we were like, what if we turn this into a business? So I started doing it all on my own. And then once we got to 50 clients, which took us about a year, then my husband quit his job and we kind of did it together. And yeah, and so now, 7 years in, we have 2 employees and we have graphic wrap cars. And primarily what we do is we do residential pet waste removal for people, but we also do HOAs and install and maintain pet waste stations. We've added in dog walking, pet sitting, and it's like, every few months we keep going to a new city and just expanding. So it's really fun to see that you can, turn something that people think is not a glamorous job into like a full-blown business, because it really is a useful business.
There are a couple things that I've noticed about what you're doing that I think is just working beautifully. One is you're marketing so well, and you know your audience, you know your target audience. The other piece is your intro whenever you speak, and I've had an opportunity to hear you speak at different events that we've been a part of, where you say "Squid Skedaddle," where we make your day less crappy.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
I
making
didn't
your
want
day
to
less
butcher the
crappy.
making your day less crappy. And I love that because I think a lot of the time when I'm working with business owners, they have a very difficult time figuring out both of those aspects of how do I market, who do I talk to. So
Mhm.
you said 1 year. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it took us 1 year to get 50 clients, and that was with no advertising, no networking. I didn't know what any of that stuff was back then. It was just word of mouth. So that was really
Wow.
cool.
And you said word of mouth, which completely makes sense. And so I'd love to know, what was the original plan? So you said a year that you were able to get 50 clients. What was the original plan that you and your husband had to grow this business?
Well, the original plan was, let's just see if it sticks and see if this is actually something that our town could really use and need. And Prescott has always kind of been more of a retirement community. And so we really saw a need for that because so many people love their dogs, but either physically, can't go out and do it, or they have a rougher terrain. And so it fit really perfectly. And we really realized we were able to fill a need for people.
That's amazing. What inspired you to start this business?
So, a big part of it was I probably would have never even thought about doing my own thing if I didn't get laid off during COVID. So that's one of the perks that came from COVID, was like, hey, like we got to figure, like try to do something else. But I wanted to do something that wasn't just glamorous, but something that was a really useful business and something that I could feel good about at the end of the day. Because the jobs that I had in the past were just, jobs that I didn't really love or never really enjoyed what I do. And, I really love dogs and love being around dogs. And so that it kind of just seemed like the perfect fit. And we were able to actually help people, and, people would come out and thank us and just tell us like how much we were really helping their lives. And I never realized you could, do that just from picking up dog poop. So it's been really cool to see.
Thank you for sharing that. And I would love to know, because we all go through obstacles, and you said from a layoff, you built this company. How were you able to overcome a moment like that and think higher and think bigger about what you wanted to do next?
Well, it wasn't instant. You go through that, slight period of grief when you get laid off. But I was always raised to, like if you fall, like you got to get back up and figure it out because you have bills to pay and you have, stuff you got to do. So, there was probably a solid like month of, just being like sad that I lost my job and, what am I going to do in this economy? But I don't know. We prayed a lot about it. And then the opportunity just kind of came to us. I had, like I said, like neighbors that like needed help with a need and, just there to fill a need, not even thinking about getting anything from it. And then just talking with my husband and he was like, wow, like we could make this into a business. And then having him there, being able to work and support me while I started my own thing, that's really incredible too, like having someone like a really good support system because I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. So that was really amazing.
The partnership is just really important, and to find someone who's good at that and supports you, especially as a woman, I think it's huge. Speaking of that, what are some obstacles that you face as a woman in your industry?
The biggest one is just earning any kind of credibility. People just always assume that it's Jordan's business, and I'm just a mom in the background. Which I mean, and so I guess it's more just like not getting like offended by that because I do so much for the business, and I'm more of an owner than he is. Jordan's just more of like the work guy. And he's just like kind of happy to be there and just wants to work. But yeah, I think that's honestly the only big one is people just assume that Jordan owns it and it's, everyone goes to Jordan and he's always like, "Nope, you gotta call Trisha." Like he always just directs them back to me. So that's really the only thing.
Yeah. And that's so interesting to hear because people's first instinct it's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and usually like with me and my significant other when we're in a restaurant they'll first put the check in front of him and there are days where I want to cover the bill and I almost feel like when that happens it kind of makes me giggle because that's people's go-to. It's like, well, the man will probably take care of all this or the man is like the main owner in that. And you navigating that is just so phenomenal because I've seen you. You are the face and the name of the brand wherever you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So it's just so fascinating that you have that and you have to kind of like work around that. For women
Mhm.
that are dealing with that, what are some of the advices that you would have for them if they have it with their partner and the partner is the one that people go to?
Yeah, I mean, it helps when you have a really supportive partner like my husband, where he's just like, like he just tells people he's like, no, Trisha runs the show. Like I just work for her kind of thing. And but I mean, you can't take it personally. Like it's just a stereotype, and it's just kind of the way people think. So not taking it personally, and just let there's nothing I can do about it. So I guess that would be the biggest thing is just keep doing what you do. And at the end of the day, people will start to see it and realize that. And you do get some credit for it. But I didn't start a business to get the credibility either. So like I don't need that at the end of the day. So realizing that too, like why does it matter if people think it's, my company or it's all Jordan's? So it's something that I had to work with for myself. So I guess just realizing that, you really don't need that validation at the end of the day. Like just knowing that you created something amazing, whether people see it or not. You know what I mean? You just kind of have to get past that.
Yeah. And what you're doing is amazing, especially a lot of the factors that you're talking about, emotionally coming to terms with what you're doing and how do you show yourself and prove yourself has to do a lot with the leadership part. So I'd love to transition from the business owning side to the leadership with you.
Yeah.
How has the word leadership changed for you as you've grown in your business?
Yeah. When I first started the business, I thought it was more like, you had to have all the answers and, being like this, good boss and employees are, like it's like they work for you. But having a business has really humbled me and realized that like your employees are everything. And if you don't treat your employees good and you don't like really appreciate them because without them we wouldn't have anything. So like they've been a massive thing to help us grow the business. And so I really appreciate my employees and I don't expect them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself as a business owner. I don't, ever think that they're lower than me or anything like that because they're a huge part of our company. So a big thing I struggled with was when it's just you that runs the business and then hiring somebody, realizing that no one's going to run your company like you do, that was a fun one as like, like the boss to figure that out. Cause it's like, well, no, like they're not doing it like exactly like me. And so just realizing that, like no one is going to run your company like you do. But But yeah, you just have to, train them and appreciate them, because your employees and your customers are kind of everything. So how you treat them is really, really important.
What's been some of the ways that you've tried to make sure you're treating your employees right, that you abide by in your daily routine?
I think just so like especially when I had my old job, our boss would always just like he would only tell you if you were doing something wrong. And I remember telling him like, you don't ever tell us that you appreciate us, that we're doing a good job. And his answer would be something like, well, if you're not in trouble or if I'm not telling you that, then that should be enough for you. And that as an employee was really hard. So as a boss, I didn't want to be that way. So just always noticing the little things. And when they're doing a great job, I think that makes a big difference because people, don't want to be at a job where all you hear is the negative, negative, negative. So just being positive and being like, hey, like you did a great job today. Or anytime they get a compliment from a customer, I screenshot it and send it to them and be like, hey, like great work, keep it up. Or like we'll go out and, buy like energy drinks and put them in the cars for them in the morning or donuts, on Friday or, we'll take them out monthly for pizza. Like just like showing them that you appreciate them, even if it's small things like that. I really think that goes a long way to making it a healthy work environment.
And knowing what you know about leadership today versus before the time when you were dealing with the boss, how has that word changed for you?
It's just made me realize that, like, a leader isn't like this, like, person that's over you, like this, tyrant that, like because, we're all equal, so it's not that I'm above them because I'm a boss. Like, I'm just here to, make the best work environment and put systems in place. And if they're not doing a good job, like, I feel like that's kind of on me. Like, did I not train them well enough? Do I not have certain practices in place? So if I see issues with my employees, I don't necessarily be like, oh, like, like I need to get rid of them. Like instead, like I try to do more training or I try to see like where could I fix how I'm being, like how can I be a better leader to them? So I guess that's the biggest thing is just realizing that, sometimes it's my fault and it's not just their fault. Like I'm like maybe I'm the one that's not, training them properly. So if that makes sense.
It does, and it kind of reminds me of a scenario that I've seen, especially as a coach, where leaders we get so wrapped up in our egos and showing up that we know things and we know what we're doing that sometimes when someone messes up in our team, our first instinct is, well, what did you do? How come you did this wrong? Versus coming to ourselves like you have and dealing with our own weaknesses. Was that something that was difficult for you to do, or did you feel like because of past experiences, that was an easy thing to bring into yourself, to be less egotistic and more about how you can embrace your weakness?
No, and that's one of those things I just have to be constantly aware of. Because it's kind of like like before you have kids, you're like, oh, I'm not going to be anything like my parents and I'm not going to do this. But you forget that you were raised that way for 18 years. And sometimes it just kind of comes in there and you're like, oh, and you have to, you have to self reflect and be like, okay, I don't want to do this. It's the same thing. I've been in so many toxic work environments. And, obviously, when I'm like, I'm going to be such a better boss and I'm not going to do that. But then you catch yourself and you're like, okay, no, no, no. And you have to, rein it in and, admit when you're wrong to your employees. But I think it just boils down to treating people with respect. And when you treat people with respect and kindness, you get the best version of them. So, but I do have to remind myself of that occasionally.
Absolutely. And I know we've talked about teams. I also love the fact that you work with dogs. So I have some questions about dogs, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
What is it like to work with dogs on a daily basis? And I know you also do work with horses too, so I would love to get your experience
Yeah.
with working with animals.
So horses, that one is solidly my husband. That's a new one we brought on. Probably in the last 2 years, we had quite a few clients being like, "Can you do our horses? Can you do our horses?" And we didn't want to send the employees to that because that's something you need, training in and experiencing because horses are big, beautiful animals. But with Jordan being a ranch hand, he's very comfortable with horses. So he solely deals with the horses. I just deal with the dog side of it and cats and, the chicken coops and fun stuff like that. But I really enjoy it because I love being outside. I would say 90% of the time, all the dogs are friendly. And, like they're usually home alone for the day and you get to kind of greet them and play with them. And so it's a lot nicer than, going to work in an office with a bunch of people, being in the stuffy room where people can be grumpy because dogs, they're not judgmental. They just kind of unconditionally love you. And so it's pretty enjoyable to work with dogs every day. And when we hire employees, same thing. We make sure that they absolutely love dogs. And so usually when I call them and ask them how their day's going, it's like, "Oh, it's going amazing." I get to be outside, like I get to love on all these dogs. So it's honestly kind of like therapy, because dogs are very therapeutic, and it just makes the day kind of go by fast and really enjoyable. So I like more when the dogs are outside and hanging out with us, because every once in a while they'll be kind of inside or something, but it is kind of like a like very like therapeutic. Same with horses. My husband says, sometimes he'll just chill out there with them just 'cause just he just enjoys this, it's very quiet and it's serene, and horses are, they're just really phenomenal animals.
I just love that because I have 2 dogs and I'm just fighting with all my might to not get a 3rd dog because they're just so, like, to your point, therapeutic, and to imagine doing what you do, which is so helpful, and go and spend time with. I mean, dogs are the most beloved creatures on earth, in my opinion,
Yeah.
so it's pretty amazing. Are
Mhm.
there any lessons that you've learned from dogs that you would share with us?
Any lessons that I've learned from dogs? Ooh, that's a really good question. I mean, gosh, I don't know. You kinda just have to go into, I don't know, maybe that life is just really short. You do realize that with dogs because we've been in the business for 7 years, we grow to love the dogs, and then we lose a lot of, and that is a really hard thing, like when, especially for like the homeowners, but dogs don't live long lives, and it's really sad. And we have these long, long lives that we kind of take for granted. And I realize that a lot because we experience a lot of dogs that die, and it just kind of makes you realize like how short life is, and it makes you really want to appreciate like the people around you, and your kids and stuff like that. Even though it's completely different because we kind of see dogs as family. And so I would say that's the biggest one. It's just how short life really is,
What a beautiful
even though it's a
answer.
sad one.
What a
Yeah.
beautiful answer. Yeah, and I wanna add to that too because I really resonated with what you said. I am learning so much patience from dogs that we have. Like, both of my dogs have really taught me how to be a lot more patient, and so with what you're saying too, I'm thinking, "Wow, I have very little time with them," and so it's really good to just be mindful of spending time with them, and of course, to your point, I mean, that resonates with everybody that you are with. You don't know how long you have them
Yeah.
for in this life.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, what is the best advice that you've received with regards to leadership that you don't mind sharing with us today?
Oh, the best advice I received regarding leadership. Let's see. I guess it would honestly, what did I say before about employees?
The respectful piece?
Yeah, it's a lot about that, like, just, like, like, being, like respect and kindness just go a really long way, not that that's, like, a I don't have, like, a fun quote or anything like that, just you really have to treat people with kindness and care, especially your clients, because people will remember, like, how you made them feel, like, way after you're gone, and, just, like, kinda being that person for them, and not our clients, our employees tell us, like, monthly, like, just like, "You guys are such good bosses, like, I've never had a boss like you guys." And so that, like, really makes me feel like we're doing a good job as, like, leaders and as bosses. It just Yeah, just don't ever, lord over your employees, or I guess feel like you're better than them or above them because you're their boss, but that really, like I don't even really like the word boss, like, you keep saying, like, leader, like, that's better, like, you're supposed to, like, lead them and teach them and train them. So I guess it comes back to respect and kindness, and, just yeah, just really appreciating them and realize like your business wouldn't grow without them. So like you wouldn't be anywhere. Like if my employees both quit right now, I would be like out of, I would be so out, I would be screwed. So yeah, just really appreciate the people you have and the employees you have and the clients you have. Like, I really try not to take our, clients for granted just because, like, I wouldn't have a business without my clients. And, sometimes some of them can be kind of frustrating and testing, but, they're the reason I have a job and I can pay my bills and feed my kids. So, like, I really appreciate that at the end of the day.
That's beautifully put, and I really love who you are as a leader because you're very mindful, you're present in the moment, and one of the reasons why I really wanted you to be part of this podcast is because, especially in what I deal with in the corporate world, a lot of leaders have a hard time with letting go of their ego or letting go of so much the difficulty, the challenges that sometimes it's really important for someone to really sit with that and understand the humility and understand that kindness is a part of leadership and it's not something that you ignore. just because you're sitting as a vice president in a corporate world. So,
Yeah.
Trisha, thank you for being part of this podcast. Where can we find you? If we want your services, where are you?
Yeah. So, well, we serve all the Quad Cities. You guys can find us on my website, which is scoopskedaddle.com, or you can call me at 928-308-9621. And you won't get a robot, you'll get me. I'm the only one that answers the phone. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And again, this is Integrity Over Scale podcast. Please subscribe. We have an episode on a weekly basis. And again, thanks, Trisha, for joining us today. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.